Hi, and welcome back to THU TV. Hopefully you guys are having a good time and enjoying this feed. We've had some amazing talks so far. Mostly we're focusing on this series of talks, we're focusing on creativity and technology. And I'm here with Ludger. Ludger, thank you so much. And is this your first THU?
Yeah, it's
your first THU. So we were talking a little bit before about some of your work and some of the stuff you've done. But let's go ahead and give the audience a little bit of a history of your background and where that came from and what's led to what you do now.
Okay, well, I came from, we made 48 political documentaries mainly with oppressed groups like American Indian movements, things like that, for more than 25 years.
Right.
And then I was asked to set up a new university in Karlsruhe, in Germany, combined with a new museum and a technology research center, which is the ZKM, the Center of Art and Media Technology.
Okay.
Where the idea was kind of to research and at the same time teach what artists could do with newest technology.
With the newest technology.
In this time, media theory didn't exist.
Okay.
Yeah, we started to talk about media. In this time, there was film and there was radio, but multimedia didn't exist. Digital didn't exist.
Right. And how long ago was this?
Yeah, well, it's 25 years ago.
25 years ago is when you started
we started,
this school.
We called ourselves an electronic Bauhaus, and later we kind of transferred it to a digital Bauhaus.
Wow.
Yeah. So the idea from the very beginning was that we have an exhibition room, a laboratory, and a university at the same time in a huge building, where, and this was kind of really a challenge, where you teach something you don't know.
Right.
Yeah, because
there was a fascinating story a little bit about the building. Tell me about that. Tell the audience about that. That building is an interesting concept in itself.
Yeah, well, it was the biggest factory for bullets and grenades for the First and Second World War, and it was not bombed by the Allies. Nobody knows why.
Right.
And so it became under an architectural protection program, but nobody wanted to get into this industrial building with such a history.
Right.
And we sought to make change bullets and not swords to plowshare, but bullets to VCRs would be a good idea.
That's amazing, and you guys got that access. And you said it's a huge.
It's huge.
It's huge, right?
Yeah.
How many square meters approximately? Do you know?
I don't know, but I think it's double the size. The whole thing here.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So we have exhibition room, we have laboratories,
and you're doing
we have
laboratories and stuff. And obviously, because you're researching this newest technology, you're constantly swapping things out and trying new things. Am I correct about that?
Yeah. Well, 8 years ago we started with the expanded 3D digital cinema laboratory, where we focused in the beginning on digital 3D.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the things where we thought artists from the very beginning in the cave art, they wanted to kind of narrate in space. Yeah?
Okay.
But the technology didn't allow us normally, and so we learned how to frame the world.
Right.
Yeah? And what we wanted to do is kind of open it up again, into space. And we started to develop dramaturgic structures, which we called space-time narrations.
Okay.
So in art history, we had space-time experiences, like the cave art or the sinister chapels, churches. Yeah, they are space experience.
Yeah.
And we have, since Aristotle, the idea of how to organize time, what we call dramaturgy.
Right.
Yeah. Hitchcock said, film and theater is life without the boring parts. It's how you create tension in time.
Right, right.
And we started to bring it together and said we have to kind of create a space-time narrative and combine space-time experience with dramaturgic structures.
Right.
And therefore we had to kind of expand the idea of dramaturgy not only in temporal tension, but also to create vertical tension, horizontal tension, and parallax tension, depth tension.
Okay.
And this led, of course, very quickly to VR.
To VR.
Yeah,
okay.
and one of my best friends here is now a new institute in Dublin. They work on creating the holodeck.
Okay.
So the whole thing is about what I call a spatial turn with newest technology to kind of reorganize artistic approaches to space and time.
To space and time. So obviously you think when you're going through and you're expanding your view and et cetera, so you basically create this environment for a VR creation at this point. Where do you feel that some of the challenges may actually lie in creating VR content in that way, specifically in the role of narrative, how narrative fits into this VR content.
Well, the funny thing is, I love it because nothing works in VR, and nobody knows nothing. Yeah,
Right.
Everybody who tells you that they know something don't believe that.
Right.
Yeah? We are just starting. We're starting with a couple of problems: where to put the team,
Right.
where to put the lightning. You cannot hide the lightning. You cannot hide a team like you do now.
Yes. Oh, this is when you're filming in VR.
When
yeah.
you're filming. Yeah.
Right.
The next thing is, for example, the film language, which took 100 years to kind of develop,
Yes.
was in one thing quite easy. When I focus your face,
Yep.
and then I look at the camera guy,
Right.
my mind blended out the in-betweens.
Right.
Yeah, so I cut from here to there, nobody cares.
The invisible style.
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
Because we already do that,
Right.
because our mind don't want to process the data in between.
Right.
Yeah, but there is not a single experience in our life where we are in a sphere, in a space, and then we are in another sphere, in another space.
Right.
Yeah, this is possible in Harry Potter films, but in our real life we have never this experience.
Right.
So to cut from one environment or one sphere, I like to call it spheres, to
Right.
another sphere
Right.
is not natural, and you have to find an explication. Yeah?
Right.
The other thing is the presence of the viewer. You are completely in the scene,
Yes.
but the scene is not reacting to you. How
So that's
could
the
it be?
thing that I mentioned about narrative, because narrative is a third-person experience,
Yeah,
and a lot of what seems to happen in VR seems to lend itself to first-person experiences.
yeah. And there had been films
And there
like
have
The
been-
Lady in the Lake from Montgomery,
Right.
yeah, which flopped totally because people didn't like it to have all the time the first-person experience.
Right.
Yeah, so I think we have to come with VR more from, again, to make the journey from the cave experience than to try to translate film language immediately towards VR.
But I love this analogy of the cave, right? So, what do you think the caveman did in the cave that allowed it to be an immersive narrative experience?
Well, the first thing is, you had been in such caves?
I've seen some.
Yeah,
yes.
when sometimes you really have to kind of go in like this, like in the birth channel. It's not
Right.
easy to enter.
Right.
And then they had lights, flickering lights, which already kind of started to move the whole thing.
Right.
And the paintings are not two-dimensional.
Right.
They use the cave kind of to see things which are already in the cave, and they paint it out.
Right.
And this with the flickering lights already creates a really immersive environment.
Right. Right. Right.
And I would bet my fortune, which I don't have, on that most of those experiences were combined with hallucinogenic mushrooms.
Sure. Yeah.
And this was where the cognitive revolution hit into, because sapient humans
Right.
existed millions of years and they did almost nothing. They were,
Right.
And with this cave art, they started music, then they made sculptures, and then they made buildings. It was all three-dimensional. It was
Right.
all kind of, humans always knew in this time that we are always inside something.
Right.
We are inside a mother, and then we are inside something. We don't know, but we don't know an outside.
Okay.
So the whole kind of philosophy also was into kind of this being inside a space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And especially with the monotheist religions and writing, humans started to abstract themselves from being inside. Yeah?
Okay.
If I'm here, but I take this book, the words of this book, more serious than the reality here, then I get into an abstraction, in a two-dimensional abstraction.
Okay.
Yeah, which helped us a lot to understand things about the world. But the loss was this big feeling of being inside and connected.
Right.
Yeah. And this is also a thing which I think we could have to recreate now in art. Yeah?
Right.
This feeling of being inside and connected. And I see another really big chance in,
Okay.
and this the first point of view, which is a problematic thing for dramaturgy, but can create an enormous amount of empathy.
Empathy. Right.
If I am 50 times in my experience a woman or black, or if I'm a dwarf, or if I'm a giant, or if I'm an animal, and I really experience the world through another perspective, that, in my opinion, will create empathy.
Right.
And this is a huge opportunity. We have, for example, for drama structure, as it's so complicated, I just give you two examples of drama structures we have kind of worked on.
Right.
One I call the cloister strategy.
The what?
The cloister strategy.
The
When you are
cloister,
in
right.
old monasteries,
Yeah.
there are these cloisters where you walk around and there are, let's say, 12 art pieces, sculptures or paintings
Yes.
from the life of Christ,
Yeah.
which gives you an immediately emotional impact on his suffering in the crucifying or things
Sure.
like that. Yeah. But when you walk around the cloister, you always have this kind of art experience, yeah. And then you walk to the next one, but you fill the gap of the story because you know the story while you walk to the next event.
Okay.
Yeah. Whenever a story is really known,
Yep.
you can use in VR this cloister strategy.
Okay.
Another strategy we kind of developed, we kind of stole it from Being John Malkovich,
From who?
from the film Being John Malkovich.
Oh yeah, being John Malkovich.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, the funny in John Malkovich is that people want to see the world through the eyes of John Malkovich, so we have
Right.
a real first-person perspective.
Right.
So I call it a porthole strategy. That means you go into VR and you look through the eyes of a person into a scene, but you don't know who you are. And by how the world reacts to you, you have to figure out if you are a man, a woman, if you are Chinese, if you are black and white, if you are beautiful, if you're what.
Right.
Yeah? And the more information you find out what your identity is, the more information you suck out of the scene.
Interesting.
Until you have completed this perspective, and then you can go to a porthole into another perspective of the same scene.
Right.
And you have to play the game all over again until you, for example, you solve a riddle or you solve a crime or you find the Holy Grail.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because whenever you see the situation from different point of views, you get different informations.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think it's brilliant idea. I think that's specifically what I'm looking for. Is I think people are struggling right now by trying to just shoehorn traditional film into VR, and I don't think it necessarily works. You can't do things. You can't do edits as well as like you said before.
Yeah.
You can't do a close up because it's just me being very awkwardly close to you, and that's gonna be different, right? But you can have different first-person experiences that would be very interesting to have. So I'm interested in specifically some of those ideas. I love your analogy of the John Malkovich stuff.
Yeah. One thing is I'm working on something, probably the most crazy things I ever did. I call it curved events, a quantum theory of drama,
Okay.
where I try to combine something like Einstein and Eisenstein.
Okay.
Yeah. One of those ideas came up when I kind of observed my own dreams, and I found out that in my dreams there are rules.
You make your own. You make.
No,
your
no, there are. I really believe that there are rules in dreams. Just they are different than our daily perception rules.
Okay.
And then I did a lot of research with quantum theory, and I came up to the idea that probably our dreams are ruled by quantum mechanics laws, while our day-to-day perception is ruled by Newton's laws.
Okay.
But it's not lawless, and we are already every day in three realities. We are in our day perception, we are in our dream perception,
Right.
which has different rules. Like in quantum physics, you can change, you can morph, you can be on different places at the same time, like an electron in quantum physics.
Right. Of course.
And we are in deep sleep. And we know now from brain scanning that when you are in deep sleep, you don't remember nothing, but there's a lot of brain activity. So you are do something. You are
You're processing
somewhere.
stuff.
Yeah?
Right.
So I think this, when we work with VR, we should kind of search wherever we can to find those new tools to create art in space.
Right.
And not kind of to think that it's the closest is 3D film, so we just take the step further.
Right. Right. I think there is a lot of wonderful room for art in VR. I think that's a very, very creative field that people can do. I had a past life as an architect, and so in architecture, VR is just very natural, right? Because it is about space and it's about stuff. So to me, immediately, my interest in VR is environments. Is about spatial experiences. But is there other things that you've been researching that you involved with that goes beyond VR or in different areas that you've been exploring?
Yeah, well, what we do is a lot of trying to combine technology which are not combined. Well, the law of of creativity
Yes.
is just bring ideas together or part of your brain together which had never been connected.
Right. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
Right.
So, for example, what we do a lot is also together with the university in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
It's a technical university, and they are the most advanced from the university side in 3D laser scanning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they scan normally cultural heritage sites which are in danger by IS or by nature.
Right.
Yeah, like for example, in the Black Hills, the 4 presidents, they scanned it completely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they have scans for the millimeter, exact for the millimeter.
Right.
So one of the things is, for example, you can scan jungle
Right.
and use it for animation. So you have the
Sure.
data already.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
or
right.
use it for creating environments for VR.
Right.
Or as you come from an architectural background, let's scan the city over here. They
Right.
scan Glasgow and Edinburgh completely by the
Okay.
millimeter.
Right.
Yeah. And then ask the population, how do you want to change your city? And then you we put some solar stuff in, we put some vertical gardens in, we put some planning for fish, creating fish
Sure.
things, yeah. And then everybody could virtually enter the city, his own city,
Okay.
and when they agree that this is what they want to have,
Yep.
you say print because it's exact on the millimeter. You can plan and work on that.
Plan on front of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's really, really very interesting. Is there, you mentioned you worked in documentary films for a long time. What kind of documentary films did you work on?
Well, we did mainly political documentaries,
Political documentaries?
and mostly of oppressed people on those planets. We worked with a lot of indigenous people in the
Right.
U.S. and in the Amazon rainforest in Mexico, Guatemala, but also with Kurd. My wife is Kurd, or in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
We were in the first Gulf War. We were on the shitholes of the planet.
Sure.
Yeah, and in this time when you wanted to change something positively on the planet, well, you joined a guerrilla and took a gun, or you made media that people became aware of it.
Right.
Nowadays, if you want to change something, you invent a new water desalination system.
Yes.
Yeah. Or a new algorithm,
Right.
and you can more effectively do good by that than breaking some glasses with a stone.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
I
this
mean,
is
that's
where
what
we
Bill
work.
Gates and
Yeah.
Melinda Gates Foundation does, right?
Yeah.
So,
And one of the things which we are now starting since a year is we going heavily towards artificial intelligence, in research to artificial intelligence in art.
okay.
How artists kind of communicate with artificial intelligence, and all the problems which comes by that, by taking away jobs and bots and the possibility of super intelligence. That
Sure.
we create something which is more intelligent than us.
Right.
And I think this is one of the most important things to discuss. And the politician doesn't discuss it. Yeah. Silicon Valley is not discussing it. They
They are.
making
Oh,
it.
I think they are. They're just not
Yeah.
doing it openly.
But I think artists should kind of create the awareness that this is already all happening. It's,
Right.
Yeah, it's not. They don't agree. Kurzweil would say in 35 we have super intelligence. Other would say by the end of the century. But everybody agrees that it will happen.
Oh, I think it'll be soon. Deep learning is accelerating so fast at this
Yeah.
point that it's really hard to figure
And
out how.
it's also, I found it really interesting. A lot of people say artists are reluctant to technology. Bullshit. I cannot imagine Da Vinci being reluctant to technology.
No, I think you're right.
What is important, I think, for us as artists with technology is first thing, like the philosopher Flusser said, is hack the black box. Yeah, use technology in ways which are not completely intended by the technology itself.
That's what makes the best art.
Yeah. Hack the black box. And the other thing is, I think what artists should really do is start to push and help to develop a technology which is not antagonistic to nature anymore.
Right.
We think because our technologies of the first and the second industrial revolution was hardly antagonistic to nature.
Okay.
So sometimes we have the feeling that technology by itself is antagonistic to nature, which is not.
Right.
Ants, for example, are much more than us, even in biomass.
Right.
And they make a lot of transformation, and they leave no pollution.
Yes.
As there's no need that we create pollution. I think this is where arts and technology, when they work together with science, we can really positively change the world and design the future.
But so your interest in technology, did it come from just being a filmmaker? And filmmakers have to know about technology, right? I mean, Or where did your interest in technology and how did you make the bridge there?
Well, when I was around 19, 20, I supported indigenous resistance because I wanted to fight technology.
Right.
And I wanted to go back to the tribal world, like here.
Right.
I loved this lifestyle.
Right.
But then I realized that going back to a tribal lifestyle will cost 6 billion people's lives.
Right.
And who could make such a decision? So I said, well, maybe I have to change course and don't attack technology, but transform technology. And the more I got into that, the more I found out that it's really not technology itself. We are just too stupid to create good technology yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but we are on the brink. For example, windmills and solar powers are not perfect, but they're much better than what we had before.
Right.
Yeah. At the moment, sea desalination for solving the problem of climate change and Sweetwater.
Right.
It's mostly by oil, which is stupid. Yeah, we could do that by wind. We could do it by osmotic process. So I think we can create a technology which emancipates and empowers people, and don't enslave them.
And don't enslave them. Yeah. I think that's really nice. Now you mentioned the deep learning as something that you're seeing as going to affect the world in technology and possibly even creatively, because I think that there is, what's interesting about some of the first demos of deep learning algorithms is surrounded by art in a lot of ways, where people are teaching the computer how to make art.
Yeah.
A friend of mine said it's more of a magic trick in some ways, but the idea that art can be created through technology exclusively, not even involving a person. What do you think about that?
Well, it's quite easy in design, and for example, architectural design.
Sure.
You can give an evolving algorithm and deep learning a challenge task.
Right.
And they come up with ideas humans would have never have found.
Right.
And they work perfectly together with the designer.
Right.
For example, in music and painting, what evolving algorithm and deep learning could do pattern recognition.
Yes.
If I show them 500 of my paintings, they find a pattern and they make my paintings. And they can make then thousands of my paintings where I can choose which I want to work on.
Right.
In music, the same thing. Yeah. If you give an algorithm all of Mozart, he can compose Mozart because he finds the pattern of Mozart's style.
Right.
Yeah. Where they are completely bad at the moment is whatever comes to literature, and poetry, literature.
Right.
Because an algorithm cannot understand that I say heart, and I don't mean the organ, I mean love or something like that.
Right.
So whatever, when we talk, when we work with words, it's always the double meaning.
Yeah.
And an algorithm can at a moment not understand any kind of double meaning.
Right.
Yeah. Because it's not a fixed pattern. The same word has very different meaning in different contexts.
Yes.
That will take long for algorithm to understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think what we should kind of, especially when it comes to education or working here with the tribe, is I think sooner or later, algorithms and bots will become better in every kind of answering and resolving tasks.
Which would make things easier.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Takes just longer.
Right.
The last stand of us, that I believe, is asking intelligent questions.
Right.
So what we have to train our young people is not to obey and to learn, because that the machine can do much better.
Great.
To create interesting, new, fresh questions.
Right.
Yeah. And
I agree. I think it's fascinating. I love what you're talking about. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I'd love people to know, where can they find out more about your research?
Well, you Google Beyond Festival, and then you come next year to my Beyond Festival.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think this is the easiest start, and then we are in an interconnected world. If you Google my name, you come to my research, or you visit Karlsruhe and you come to my place and show you around.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. Thank you so much.